great. So this is a day with knowledge, inspiration, live demos, and maybe more importantly, an opportunity to meet and discuss and maybe make new connections that can help you in your journey towards sustainability. I'm Lena Forsberg, and I have the great pleasure of kicking off this Mobility Day by moderating this opening session. And this year's Mobility Day has a focus on sustainability. So we will learn and discuss how new mobility solution can help us reach the climate goals. However, technology and innovation cannot stand on its own. In order to really make a difference, we need to also change our own behaviors as persons, as well as the way we work and adopt new business models. And all of this will be touched upon in this year's Mobility Day, where we have representatives from all mobility actors. So throughout the day in the different activities, you will see representation from automotive industry, from academia, from public officials, and of course also from private actors in the forefront of digitalization. And where better to host this event than here in Stockholm, Kista, where many of the new future mobility solutions are being developed. And among the topics that we will address here today is the role of 5G and connectivity, how mobile data can be used for sustainable city planning, how we can collaborate different actors in order to electrify the vehicle fleet. And during the day, we will talk, of course, about all the achievements that has been done, but maybe more importantly, we will also talk about what are the next steps? What do we need to do next? And when you leave Kista and Mobility Day this afternoon, we hope that you do it with a sense of hope and inspiration. We hope that you have learned a lot from the different sessions, demos, and discussions here during the day. We hope that you've also made some new connections. And we hope that all of this combined will give you a broader understanding of how you as a person and how your organizations can contribute to making a sustainable mobility sector here in Stockholm, Sweden, and why not even in the world. So I think it's time now to kickstart this day. So I would like to invite our first speakers. So please welcome up on stage, give them a big hand. Karin Bengtsson, CEO of Kista Science City. Mikael Bäck, Vice President and Corporate Officer at Ericsson. A colleague of mine, by the way. And then, last but not least, we have Wennerblom, Marketing Director at InMotion.
Thank you.
And maybe we can change the slide. I can do it if no one else does. Here we go. So, yes, maybe I should mention, as you can see, we were supposed to have Lars Strömgren here today. Unfortunately, he is not able to be here today due to illness, but he sent us a message, not a video one, but a written one that I will read up to you. And his hope was that this could kind of inspire and spark the dialogue that we will have here today. So I will read it. The city of Stockholm values this kind of opportunities for dialogue and support new technical solutions which can speed up the climate transition. He hopes that Stockholm's ambitious climate goals will contribute to further increase the pace of innovation for emission-free mobility. So that's the message from Lars. And now I turn to you, Karin. So the future of mobility, it's all about sustainability, digitalization, and connectivity. And Stockholm and its surrounding regions are like a very strong technical cluster. So what can you in Kista Science City do to maintain this position and maybe also help us all to connect within this cluster?
Well, I think transport and mobility, it posed really complex challenges when it comes to sustainability. And it's not only about how we move people and goods and how that has an effect on sustainability, but it's also complex because transport and mobility affects so many different sectors and actors. And we need to find ways to work together across sectors and actors. And I think Stockholm, when you look at it from a regional or national perspective, is perhaps not as well known for being a cluster for mobility and transport. But when we look at it, we see that many of the new mobility solutions actually comes from Stockholm, and that the strong tech and startup ecosystem that we have here is actually feeding into the transport sector. We have companies that we have here with us today, like Einride and Wijk and Volta, that are really great examples of new solutions. And that is something that I think Stockholm should be really proud of, to see how we can feed that into the broader transport sector. We also have a very strong industrial cluster here in Stockholm with Scania and Södertälje, and the production cluster that we have here. And I think this is really a great opportunity for Stockholm to merge these different strengths that we have and to thereby accelerate the sustainability that we need in the transport sector. And I think Mobility Day that we have here today is one way that we can do that at Kista Science City, is really to bring all these actors together around different common topics. And that's really what we try to do with Mobility Day, to connect different actors and see that we talk to each other across sectors as well.
Yeah, I couldn't stress it more. So really take advantage of this opportunity to just network and connect with each other, because that's how we make things happen, right? Okay, so moving on then to Mikael. So what role does 5G and connectivity play for a sustainable mobility solution?
It's really key. It's, I think, transportation and logistics were one of the absolute first industries where we had the very early versions of IoT, kind of just tracking goods and so on. So we have a very long history of using even 2G, 3G, and 4G in, not the least, trucks and so on. So if you look at anything new coming out of Scania, as you mentioned, Volvo and so on, everything is connected now. So there is a huge opportunity to use digitalization quicker than in other industries where you have more of legacy and so on. So I think, to me, digitalization is the strongest tool we have for really supporting sustainability. Without that platform, it's going to be very difficult. Of course, you can work with different kind of fuels and so on, but everything that has to do with electrification and so on really builds on that. You have more knowledge, visibility and so on of the transport fleet, of the cars and whatever. So if you want to really change that system in Stockholm, you really need more intelligence about where trucks are, where cars are and so on. So to me, it really goes hand in hand. And I think Stockholm has a unique opportunity, and Sweden as a whole has a unique opportunity. And we talked a lot about this in Almedalen this year, not the least with government, with local politicians and so on, that there is a number of things we can do as companies, there is a number of things you can do as private citizens, but there is a number of things that government and local politicians has to support with. And that is, of course, we need a network that you can rely on wherever you are, in tunnels or in outskirts.
He's saying that because I was stuck in a tunnel this morning in traffic jams, talking about the mobility, right?
No, but also further out in the archipelago, whatever you are. And I think one trick we have is, of course, that the business case for building out mobile networks for operators is typically where people are using smartphones, in Kista, in the offices, whatever. And that is sometimes different than where logistics and cars and so on go. So I think we need a national agenda that really supports the digitalization that is happening now on the streets, in the factories, or wherever we need it. And that is slightly different than the network that has been built out so far. And we've seen other countries. I just came home from India now that we see as less advanced in many areas than Sweden. But when it comes to a national agenda, putting things on the moon now, which was a super strong achievement for a super low cost, building out 5G. They have already built out 300,000 5G base stations, which is more than Europass, coming close to US and so on in a very short time. They have a clear agenda to really change the situation from what is today a super difficult traffic situation, of course, but also that will be helped by this build-out. And I think we have all the secrets in this when it comes to companies like us building the infrastructure together with Telia and others. We have a lot of strong companies here in Kista, in Stockholm, in other parts of Sweden like Gothenburg. But sometimes we need to get this together because these systems are a bit complex. It's typically companies like us belonging to a very different industry than the transportation industry and so on. There is more and more standardization and cooperations going together, but sometimes it's also regulated by different bodies in the government or government agencies. So there is a number of things that we need to fix still to make this perfect. And I think we need to get, as you said, you have a lot of innovation companies here and so on, to get them also into this business, to make it attractive to innovate, to build from Stockholm, to build from Sweden, and to take that abroad. But I think, to me, this is one of the greatest opportunities we have, both to create competitiveness for the city, for Sweden, sustainability. It's really efficiency, and everything will come from that. We can have more intelligence, we can increase security on the roads, we can increase predictability, we can follow the goods, we can do so many things now with AI and automation and so on, if we know that we have a trusted connection to everything that is out there. So to me, everything really hangs together, and a lot is done, but there is a number of things that has to be fixed, not the least from the political layer, to really get the full benefit out of this. That's my view, at least.
So we have a strong position, but in order to go even further, we need the whole ecosystem to be collaborating.
And I think we need, my feeling also from, especially last year last half year when Sweden was chairing EU and so on, we had a lot of politicians coming here from Sweden and from abroad, and it's fairly clear that they come to a large extent from a different world, and we need to continue to educate about this. For many people, this is not at all as obvious as it is to me. And digital is sometimes seen as a negative when it comes to sustainability because our equipment is consuming energy. They don't see the other side of things. So I think education is we still have some work to do.
But maybe we should also mention that we are also spending a lot of efforts on reducing the energy consumption in our products.
Absolutely. So it's a huge difference now than what it was just a couple of years ago when it comes to just the consumption of what the operators are putting in action. And the same goes for data centers and so on. That has been one of our big focuses right now, that you can see very close to us on the wall here what we are doing.
So 5G and connectivity plays a big role. So moving over to you then, Martin. So from your side, coming from the supplier of technology as well, what do you see as the most important strategies in order for Stockholm to make it carbon neutral?
I see three main strategies that needs to be put in place. And if we start with the first one, I think it's all about innovation and experiment. And I think days like this, where you build different networks and meet, collaborate, is very, very important to bring this to fruition. So when you work with software and new products and so on, we are a company. InMotion is a company that develops equipment for the vehicle industry, so electrifying the vehicles that we put on road. So it's about there to test. So test new solutions, test that, because we don't know exactly what's going to be the best solution out there in a couple of years. So it takes a number of tests to do that. And I think Stockholm plays a really good match in that sense, because you have a lot of startups here, as mentioned before, and we are very innovative per se. So we don't know exactly what the best solution will be, but we need to try a number of them in order to find the best one. The other part is the long-term goals. You mentioned that the strategy is that we need to have a political climate that is has longevity as well, and I think it's very, very important to stay focused on the target. So 2040 carbon neutral. So don't divert from that. Implement solutions that are long term. So we know the play field. We also know that it requires tough decisions to make this happen. And it's not everyone that wants to maybe have a zero emission zone, but I mean, it drives different types of behaviors. If we implement that, it drives different types of technology. And that is, from a competitive perspective in Stockholm, I think that is something that is very positive, and especially positive for the people and coming and visiting us and living here as well. So it requires tough decision. Look long term. So that was the second one. And the third one is to involve the citizens of Stockholm in this process, because this is a major change for us. And I think everyone is that either go abroad, they will have a perspective on what we do back home, so to say, in Stockholm. And they are kind of sales representatives of Stockholm. They will tell what's happening here when it comes to sustainability. And they will also start to compare, and it will be a positive trend, a very positive trend for us. So basically they will spread the word what's happening in Stockholm as well. So that will help, and it will also bring more people coming to Stockholm and gain more interest for it. So innovate, experiment, look at the long-term goals, and also communicate with the citizens of Stockholm and the world around that. Okay.
And based on what you said, it sounds like the tough climate goals of Stockholm City that Lars mentioned is actually contributing to pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it helps. So, and I mean, the city has a buying power that they can use in that sense as well. So I think they should use it as much as possible.
To round off this panel, I would like to ask a question that each of you respond to. So how can your organization contribute to a sustainable future and Stockholm's climate goals? So where do we start? We can start with you, Mikael.
I think first we have to do the basics. We're a company based here, so we have a lot of employees, we have a lot of offices, we have a lot of company cars. So we have a very strong agenda when it comes to our goals, when it comes to reducing our own emissions, logistic chains, our own footprint. Of course, as you mentioned, the equipment we put in field for our customers, maybe the main contributor, and then the positive effect the digitalization will have on this, that will be the most impact we do. But on top of that, I think given that we have so many research employees, so many R&D employees and so on, this is a clear part of Stockholm's innovation hub, competence hub in these areas and so on. So continue to work with the other industries around us, with politicians and so on. I think we can be a very strong power when it comes to Stockholm continuing to drive this, and we will also bring external influences from other countries, given that we are active everywhere where something is happening. So I think we can actually do quite a lot. what would be good, of course, when you talk about self-driving cars or news that requires some regulation changes, if we could also, together with the city, define certain areas where you're allowed to do things that is not on the public roads, if you can do things to really even strengthen innovation in areas where there is limitations, liabilities, political whatever, as you have seen in Germany, for example. I think that would help us do this even faster. And then talk about this even more. I've seen a lot of cases where it's what we try to do with digitalization, it's a little bit complex for politicians and so on. So it's easier to talk about the new battery factory, because that is, you can put you can dig in the ground and so on. I think we need to be able to talk about the more advanced things as well. But I think there is a lot we can do, and we will do.
Yes, we will. Karin.
I think an organization like us can help to be sort of in between. I think the climate goals that Stockholm has are really ambitious, but I think we need to, a little bit like you were saying, turn them into our common goals and an ambition to really be at the forefront and not only reach the goals, but do it in a really innovative way and show that Stockholm is at the forefront, and also to turn these goals into a great home market for the industry that we have here. And this, I think, is a really great opportunity for the city and for the region, and I think we can be part of that. And I also think that to put that into action, it requires collaborations, and it requires new thinking, but also new collaborations. And I think that's what platforms like these are really for, to make sure that we not only collaborate with the ones that we usually collaborate with, because as we will talk about later, this requires behavioral changes, and it requires that we involve the citizens. So we need different kind of platforms for collaboration. And here I think an organization like Kista Science City can really help to bring those regional collaboration platforms forward, and also to support the city and the region in a little bit to take the challenges that they have and turn them into business opportunities for companies, because there are different words, but we have the same goal. So how do we make that happen? I think there we can play a role.
So own the goals and collaborate. Good. Martin, what do you say?
I think our company is on a fantastic journey. So as mentioned, we produce power electronics for the vehicle industry. And actually, last year we delivered a number of products that eliminated the carbon dioxide to the extent of the new sales, corresponding to the new sales of trucks in Sweden for this year. So basically making the transportation in Sweden carbon neutral for that year. And this is a growing path. So we will continue. We will just built a new factory. We will expand even more with more R&D resources, more production on that to put more of the products out in the market, eliminating carbon dioxide and electrifying the vehicle industry. So I think that in itself is really helping the world to go more electric and more sustainable. So, and of course, on top of that, we're looking more upstreams as well. What can we do with our company strategies to make more localized development and also localized production across the world? So, yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights and expertise with us here today. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Give them a hand. So now we will move on to what else is needed. And if you remember in the opening speech I had, I mentioned that it's not enough with technology and innovation. We do also need to change our behaviors and adopt new business models. And to talk more about that, I will welcome up a couple of speakers. So Maria Stenström, responsible for behavioral change and mobility at 2030 Secretariatet. I don't know how to say that in English. Yeah, give her a hand. We have Pia Wijk, Project Manager Research and Innovation at Einride.
Thank you.
And we have Antti, Vainio, Public Policy Nordics, ChargePoint. So, Maria, I will start with you. So we mentioned that we need to change our own behavior. But what is it we need to do? In what way?
In what way? We need to take two perspectives. And the first one is what causes the need? Can we change its upstreams? And the need, the transportation that supports the current need, can we do it in another way? Can we motivate a change for doing it in a more energy or space effective way? And the solution is what we have talked about. It's a lot of collaboration. It's about digitalization. It's about using the new technology. But it's very much how to enable people to change or think or collaborate in a new way, the new business models, the new ecosystem that I hope we will hear more about from you. So it's a lot of going for the personal transportation in a more, to use a more active mobility, a more shared mobility like public transportation, carpooling. And for the goods, it's doing it in a more efficient way. We can't have lack of use of the transportation. It should be full every meter they are driving. So that's and of course it's a lot of new regulations needed to be able to do this. So it's both supporting new services, new products, but also motivating and enable people or business corporations to do it in a new way. And there's a lot of old regulations that are stopping us right now.
Yeah, and on the topic of regulations, I mean, what is the best way to achieve the change? Is it with a whip or is it with a carrot?
It's both. and in a combination.
Yeah.
So you must make it possible to change, enable. It could be changing the city structure, as well as do regulations or incentives that motivates people to change behavior in more money, more time, more convenience, more accessibility, or so on. But it's also using the stick by making it harder to do the behavior that we don't want.
So do you have an example of what does success look like?
I don't have the best examples from Sweden, I must say, because we are not the front runner in having the regulations to make it happen. So I will use an example from Norway, how to motivate the change from fossil fuels to electric EVs, where they allowed the EV cars to use the bus lanes and then made it more accessible.
I wish we did that here as well.
And the other country, Norway and China, you have heard the similarities, where China has banned all two-wheeled vehicles to be, they don't sell fossil two-wheeled vehicles anymore. So that's a stick, and the other one is maybe more like a carrot.
Good example.
So we have a lot to, we can look what other countries do, but we need to change a lot of regulations for making the competitiveness between the current behavior and the desired behavior to make the desired behavior more attractive.
And maybe we can get even more example of success when we talk to Pia and Antti. And on that topic, so moving over to you, Pia. So how has Einride adopted disruptive technology and new business models, and how has that changed the sector of heavy transport and logistics. What do you say? Have you made a success yet?
Yes. Well, as much as I would like to say that we have changed the industry, already now, I can't do that. That would be a tremendous lie. But we are trying to step by step. Many of you might know us from our famous autonomous vehicle. But what we really do is decarbonize the transport sector. We have done so from 2019, where we deployed our first electric vehicles with our customers. But it is very difficult to change a $10 billion industry, which the industry is. And we're just a small player from Sweden, but as I said, trying our best to change it. And I would like to give you my view anyway about what are we then doing? How are we trying to change this? I mean, electrifying, that's the baseline, right? So I'm not going to go into that one. But we are doing this in a digital way. Doing optimized transports with regular diesel trucks is difficult, but to do it with electric battery electric trucks is even more difficult. You need to take additional parameters into account when optimizing your fleet. You need to be aware of, well, of course, the origin destination, but also how does the road look like going there? Is it steep hill or not? What's the weather today? Is it winter or summer? But also, of course, you need to be aware of your charging, your battery capacity and where to charge. So you're adding complexity to the system and into your fleet. So that's why you need to go digital. You need to be digital before you go electric. Since technology is changing all the time, this is not the same today as tomorrow. I mean, the battery capacities are increasing all the time. So, which leads me to my next bullet point here, which is flexibility. You need to be flexible in the way you do this. And what we see is that it's not a one-to-one solution. You can't have one diesel vehicle and then change it to an electric vehicle and think you're done. Part done. Yes, we have electrified the transport, but it's not optimized yet. So, and we're trying to discuss this with our customers every day. What's the most efficient way to do their transport needs? It might not be what they have done for the past 50 years. It might be something new. Which leads me to my third bullet point, which is it could be completely new. It could be optimized. We're not doing this at large scale today. Our plan is to deploy automated vehicles on specific short routes where it is too dull, too dirty, or too dangerous for a driver to do their daily operations, just going back and forth every single day. So why not start automizing that one? And this is the same approach that we have had with electrifying transports. We can't do it all, but we're starting somewhere. We're starting where it's possible today. So the same thinking with automated. And my last bullet point is that we also need to take responsibility. We take responsibility for decarbonizing what we do. But we've also taken the responsibility to also build the infrastructure that we need. If we don't have chargers to do the operation that we want to, we need to build chargers. So we're building our own chargers, and we have also started to build our own truck stops for our drivers to have a rest or will need shower or what they need. And we're a young company. We started off in 2016. We are exploring what is our role in this, what should we do. Building chargers might not be what we are doing in 20 years, but we're doing it now. We're exploring. So what I would like to end my statement here is that we all need to be exploring what is your role now in this new ecosystem or whatever, in this shift that we need to do. It might not be what you've done electric, it might be something else. So take responsibility and think about what could be your new role. Yes, I think that's how we think anyway.
Yeah, so it sounds like the transport and logistic industry is a very complex one to transform, but we have started and we're on our way.
Yeah.
And if everyone chip in, we will make it happen.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Via. Antti, you are working with disruptive technology for electrification. So what do you say? Do you think we need to think new in this sector, and why and how?
Yeah, definitely, I think so. Just so many thoughts on what was said here before.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting conversation, so I'm trying to think and talk at the same time almost. No, but we at ChargePoint, we're developing smart charging technologies, so both software and hardware for charging all kinds of electric vehicles. And I think that's the kind of key thing to keep in mind when we're electrifying, just like Pia was saying, that this is really disruptive change that we're seeing, because the electric vehicles that we have today, we're not going to go about charging them the way we've fueled our fossil fuel vehicles. And I think there's still such a great lack of knowledge about that, because if we look at the debates, it's still very much focused on like, how fast can you charge this vehicle? And that's what people ask me when I tell them that I drive an EV. It's like, okay, well, how long time does it take you to charge it? And the answer is kind of, I don't really know, and I don't really think about it so much, because basically when I park my car at home, I just plug it in, and then when I leave my home, it's charged. So I don't really have to think about charging more than that. Of course, I'm lucky in that sense that I'm living in a house where I can actually charge my vehicle at home. Many people don't have the chance if they live in apartment complexes, for example. But even for them, we shouldn't think about recreating the old fueling station model. I don't think people are going to take their EVs, drive somewhere, plug it in just to charge it. Instead, we're going to charge our cars wherever we park them naturally. So, for example, this summer I took my family on a longer road trip. Went to Denmark, Legoland, saw all the sites, and of course, we had to use lots of public chargers. But we used them when we stayed at hotels overnight, or we used them when we stopped for lunch. And I think this is where the new kind of business models are starting to come in. If we look at, for example, the fueling stations today, when they install chargers, they don't just install the chargers, they also start to think of, okay, if people are going to stay here for longer than just 2 or 5 minutes, what other services are they going to need? And you know, we're starting to see these kind of play areas for kids. We're starting to see nice promenade areas to walk your dog while you're charging. And we're seeing that the food offering is getting so much better. And I think there are so many great business opportunities here. And that's just one case. That's the old fueling stations that are now seeing that they can actually sell a lot more than just coffee and a sausage. So there's this kind of business case for electrification. And we're seeing the same thing with hotels, with supermarket chains. We're working with a multinational supermarket chain, building their charging infrastructure that's completely integrated into their loyalty program. So that when you're a member of this supermarket's loyalty program, you use their own app to start your charging when you park outside of their stores. You might get a notice on your phone, thank you for charging with us, here's a special offer for you today, and they can actually see how much are the customers who are charging their vehicles buying in the stores. And that's what I was thinking here, that this is just one example of how digitalization and electrification really go hand in hand, that you need to have the data also to get the advantage. And I think that's also like one part of the disruptiveness of this, that we see that charging is becoming more like Wi-Fi than like fueling your fossil vehicle. It's more like the thing that you want to offer your customers to make sure that they're happy, not the thing that you're actually selling to make money. And if you do that in a really smart way, there's just so many new business opportunities. And I think finally, what we're seeing at the moment is that the companies that are first movers, that are really starting to experiment with this, they're the ones that are winning customers. Just like me and my family wouldn't stay in a hotel where we couldn't charge our car. We wouldn't eat in a restaurant where we couldn't charge our car in the road trip. That's what the future is going to be for the companies that don't actually help people move to greener mobility and charge. They don't really have a business case in the future. So at the moment, competitive advantage, but I think in a few years' time, it's going to be something that we kind of take for granted.
I can so relate to your charging example because we have a dog and we have a house in Vemdalen, and always when we go there we had to stop to take the dog walk. And now it's not just taking the dog walk, it's charging the car, eating a meal and do the dog walk.
Yeah.
So I can
And
so relate to that.
I think it's good for you, it's good for your dog, and I think it's also good for traffic safety. Because with my car, if I can drive for 5 hours straight without charging, I shouldn't drive longer than that without actually stopping somewhere. I should stop, and while I stop, I can just as well charge my car.
Very true. Okay, to wrap up this session, I also have a question to you for each one of you to answer. And that is more like your wishes. What else would you like to see happening that will enable you to do more? What do you say, Karin?
I think we need a government with long-term thinking, giving the business or industry the opportunities to do what they need to do or want to do, and that's the lack we have. We have something we call the beteendepraktikan. That is 55 concrete examples that is just needed to have a decision, and most of them have already been investigated and just waiting for a decision. And then we have the opportunities for someone to take the chance to be the first mover and have the green business in Sweden or in other countries. And so it's a lack of decisions and long-term thinking.
And apologies, I think I called you Karin. You're
Yeah.
Maria, of course. It's like so many new faces also for me. But I'm making new connections, so should you. Okay, Pia, what do you say?
Yeah, I would like to pick something up that actually you said just now. We often get the question, who is our biggest competitor? And what we are saying is that the status quo is our biggest competitor. The transport buyer that buys without flexibility or innovation in mind, that's what we need to change. It is also the company that buys their new diesel truck 2023. I mean, did you know that I've written it down here somewhere, 96.6% of the newly registered trucks in Europe were diesel last year. So this is our biggest competitors. The status quo, the diesel. But how to change this is that we need to celebrate our success stories. We are celebrating every new electric truck that's been sold, not only to us, but to the industry. Because what you said, when we get the ball rolling, this will be much easier. It is very difficult today, but as we've seen in the private car industry, in the private car sector, a lot of us do have a battery electric car, and it's easy. But for heavy goods vehicles, the ball needs to start rolling. Okay, and how do we get it rolling then? What you said, carrots and sticks. Ban diesel in cities, for example. Stop subsidizing the old industry. Start subsidizing the electric industry, the new one that will help us reach the goals, right? But also to us all, I think we're a lot of people that have said that already. We need to try out new business models or services or whatever, and we need to fail. because it's in the fails that we actually learn. So yes, to all of us, dare to fail, and I think that will be the success.
Dare to fail. That's a good advice. Antti, what do you say?
Ah, yeah, that's such a good should be the last words, I think. But
Okay, let's end there.
no, but I mean, I hope that policymakers keep the faith and see that the technology is developing just so fast. I mean, we're seeing so many opportunities at the moment, and at the same time, it makes me sometimes sad to see policymakers kind of get stuck in old kind of conflict issues that are not really there anymore, I think. I mean, the environmental zones in Stockholm, for example, I think that's going to be something that we'll think, why didn't we do that earlier? I don't think we should be arguing about stuff like that. And like you said, ban diesel vehicles sooner. Just move faster because we got the products, we got the business models. So I think like we can have more ambitious climate goals. Yeah.
I could stand here and chat with you forever. It's so interesting. But it's time to wrap up. We are already, we are overrunning the schedule. But thank you so much for joining us here today, and give them a big hand.
Thank you.
So, but this is just the start of the day. The day continues with many different activities. As you can see, next stop, that's coffee in Helio. So it's just a short walk from here, and people will be guiding the way. It's like a 3-minute walk, and hopefully it's not raining now. No rain, no rain. You're good. You're good. And then there will be, of course, activities in the park later on. But after the coffee, maybe good for you to know, there will be 3 seminars starting at 10:30, 2 in Helio, and 1 over here in Ericsson Imagine Studio. And then, as you see, demos in the park. There will be food trucks, so you can buy your lunch. Then further seminars later on in the day at 1:30. And then, of course, we need to wrap up with an after work in the park. So you can find, if you're unsure what you have signed up to, then you can scan this QR code. We're very digital here. And then you can find the complete agenda and also what you have signed up for. And if you have any questions, then there are people around here who can support you. So with that, I would like to thank you all for joining this opening session, and I hope that you all will have a fantastic mobility day. Thank you so much.